I'll get right to it. First, how have you been doing with COVID the past 8 months?
I've been spending a lot of time in this room. This is my home studio, and yeah, it's just trying to make jobs for myself, and I've been lucky enough since the whole thing started to make a few fun ones. Did a cool record with some friends. This Songs from Home record, which is like a collaborative record I did with myself and the Once and the Ennis sisters and Fortunate Ones and Rachel Cousins, and we all sort of recorded a record together over the internet. And then of course I turned my attention to this book, and I wrote this book in the month of May, basically, really just to give myself a project to make me smile, and then hopefully thinking ahead to the fall, which is now, that would maybe give other people a chance to smile. And it feels good. It's satisfying, like, to be creating some content, especially potentially joyous content during this time, because I feel like people need it.
Absolutely. You kind of answered it just in regards to how the idea for All Together Now came about. And is the title, are you referencing the Beatles song in that, or is it just kind of that's what you came up with?
No, I never thought of that. All Together Now is something I would say in concert all the time, when I wanted people to join in. I'd say all together now, like I asked people to sing, and it's just sort of a request or a command, if you will. But the idea for the book really came from the guys at Doubleday, Random House Penguin in Canada. And because I was working on this longer book that involved some travel and some, some other, travel back to England and Ireland and stuff. And of course, none of that was going to happen. So they asked if there's anything I could do quickly that they could put out in the fall that might be funny or joyous or what have you. And I said, man, I think I might be able to pull together a short story book in the amount of time that we have. So I just sat down and started recalling some of my favorite stories that I might tell if we were in the pub.
Now, this is your third book, I believe. Was the move from songwriting to book writing, is it relatively seamless, or do you kind of got to get your mind into a different headspace to write longer form things?
Yeah, it's not, I don't find it the same at all. And my joke, and it's only partly a joke, is that the hardest thing about writing a book is writing a book. And everything else I do in my life is a day or like a week long at the most, or like you do a whole record in a couple of weeks, but you go, man, God almighty, like you do you do a book, and sometimes you're at it for months. Now this one was different because it was quick, but it's a different mindset and a different set of skills, and I don't really have, I don't say that because I have them. I say that because I acknowledge the people who do, like there's certain like things that, because I'm also, a performer for a living, right? And so I could stand on stage and tell these stories, I think, no problem. Writing them on the page, and having them read the way I would say them is a real different skill set altogether, right? Like, and just little tiny things that I would have never imagined I would have to do, like, like if I stood on stage to tell a story about myself and four, Polish guys in a van, I could do their voices, orally, but I don't know how to do it. I had to teach myself how to do it in written form, those kind of very specific skills that you don't realize till you get at it,
Yeah. I grew up on a farm, so I'm very aware of the weekends where your father would say it's a work day and you would be getting up to do work. So my favorite story from your book was the basement digging one, because I can very much relate to that. And, getting up and working, and you knew that it was going to be a long day. So that was my favorite story. But what was yours?
I don't know if I have a favorite, in all honesty, because they're all memories for me, right? And some of them are quite unpleasant memories, and yet they're funny, like threatening to, to steal a guy's bird, or some old friend is like, was not my proudest moment, and, but, there was a couple of very fond things, and even the opening story about meeting Gord Downey and Jeff Healey for the first time, even though I handled it very poorly in the end. It was, it's cool. It's like, it's just all part of a lucky life. So I'd be lying if I told you I had a favorite. I don't think I do.
uh when you kind of hear that a musician or a rock star is making a series of stories from their life and their career, people probably think, oh, it's going to be a lot of the whole thing, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But then you have so many
Yeah.
wonderful funny stories, like the mixed up hotel room story, and how you describe it
Yeah.
in the slow motion. Like, I don't want to say too much because people need to buy the book and read it, because it was
Yeah.
it was so good. But how did you choose
I
what to
thought I
write
was
about?
gonna die, man.
I
Um,
bet.
I really thought I was gonna die, and I cannot say that more plainly than that. In that experience in a Scottish hotel room, I kind of really didn't spend a lot of time in the early parts of this book planning which ones I would write. I would sit down and I would come up, just try to recall some of the stories, just even in, like, in title form, or in like what can you like, or my wife or my bud would say, you should, man, you got to tell the story about the Scottish hotel room. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I would write like a paragraph about it, and I would send it to one of the editors, I'd say, man, I could tell this story, and they'd say, that's great. And then I'd write it, and then they'd help me tweak it if it was required. And then off we go to the next one. And in some cases, I had an idea that seemed funny, and I wrote it, and in the end it didn't fit or whatever. So we just cut a few, and it's, and we supplemented it with other stuff that, a different idea. And it was really, it was done so quickly that it was kind of a work in progress the whole way through. So it's like, because we were up against a hard deadline, I
Mhm.
really had to have it in I didn't start it until the last day of April, and it had to be in the first day of June. So I had 1 month to write
One
it.
month.
So motor.
You kind of mentioned it, but did you have to go to friends and family a lot and be like, okay, I need you to fill in the gaps on this story? I don't quite remember what happened here.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of times. Not often, but a couple of times, because I didn't want the stories presented in that fashion, like there was
Mhm.
some historically dead on accurate of what time of day it was, blah blah blah. I wanted them more told the way I would tell them from the chair of a pub, like, and it's just
Mhm.
like at 11:30 on a Friday night, and if who cares what time of the day it was, or if it was
Mhm.
January 26th or 28th, and when you're in the pub. So it's a bit more liberating to tell stories that way. But there were a few, like the opening story about, with Jeff Healey and stuff in New York City. I spoke to Daryl who played in Great Big Sea for years, about it a lot. It was just to remind ourselves how it all went, because it was the truest way to tell it was the funniest way to tell it.
It was a good way to start too. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that you have a lot of stories, so if we're going to think of doing like a part two, all of the stories that you had to leave out.
You know what? I certainly could, because my friends have actually, who've read it in the last few days or weeks, have reminded me of a couple other ones. And oh man, I should have included. Oh yeah, right. We crashed Huey Lewis's dressing room. That's right. And should have. I could have wrote that one. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I mean, my notion is like, is I'm happy to write books like this every so often, because I can do them quickly, I think, and they're a little easier than a fully researched
Mhm.
version like I've done before. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I had a plan for my author career. I don't. I really don't. So I'm really just I'm winging it, man. Not gonna lie to you.
So you write the book. It releases in the fall. A lot of the stories are a wide variety. Like you said, there's inspirational, there's funny, there's sad, just wonderful stories. So do you feel like these stories kind of help people, as we get through kind of a crazy year, kind of to read something and just kind of escape from the dumpster fire that 2020 can be sometimes?
Well, that's my hope. I mean, it certainly was therapeutic for me to have a project to work on, and especially considering it was a project that I was working on that was recalling some of the more humorous missteps of my life more often than not. And the thing I've been stressing for people who haven't read it is like, I hope you're not expecting a recounting of my greatest victories, because that's not what it is at all. More often than not, it's the greatest folly of my adult life, and for my shame and your pleasure, basically. So yeah, I think totally for me, it was joyous to write, and I hope it's joyous for people to read.
All right. And kind of just switch gears slightly, but tell me about Suppertime sing along.
Oh, I'm just setting up for it right now. Actually, look at that. It's right there. There it is. And there's my dog Spencer. He's always asleep here. Oh, my God.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was the star of the show most times. He just goes to sleep there. Started doing for our charitable foundation called the Dollar a Day, which is a mental health and addictions charity where we collect $1 a day from people who want to donate $1 today to support a mental health or addictions facility in your own backyard, primarily as a call from Kids Help Phone. Then in early in the fall, we started these Suppertime sing-alongs, because Suppertime Kids Help Phone, as soon as the pandemic hit, were receiving 400 times more calls than they normally did.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in trouble and needed help, and we jumped as quickly as we could, and we raised $100,000 in the first week and donated it to Kids Help Phone. And then we just kept rolling. And in the winter, we raised over $500,000 for mental health and addictions facilities across the country. And we just started again. We did one last Wednesday, and in a couple hours, I'm doing another one here. And it's real simple. I just go on Facebook Live. It's free. Come on over. And there's a banner. If you'd like to text to give, we'll take a few dollars. Or better again, if you want to sign up, go to $1 and become a full-time $1 a day, and give $1 every day to help people who need help with mental health and addictions programs and services.
And my last question is kind of what it's hard to say because we don't really know what the next year holds, but what is on tap for you in 2021?
That's an excellent question. I'll give you $1 million if I could answer. I don't know. I mean, I can't believe it's, basically December,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't look like we're going to be playing music in any fashion, at least until next summer, does it? I mean, in any meaningful full house kind of way, I think we'll be lucky to be playing outdoor festivals next summer in any large scale kind of way. So,
Mm-hmm.
with the touring off the table, I'll probably be down here making another job for myself somehow. Record another EP, or I don't know, produce another record for someone else. I stammer and stumble over that question when I've been asked it lately, because I find it terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like to be honest with you, nothing terrifies me like a blank calendar. It does not suit me at all. I'm used to knowing where I'm going to be 18 months from now at
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes to 8. I know it's 7:55 on March 18th of 2022. I'm going to be on the side of the stage at the House of Blues in Chicago, and or whatever. And I find some people look at that long-term sort of commitment or whatever, and I find that comforting,
Mm-hmm.
to know that I have work in the arts for as long as I can see, and that's fine with me. But the short answer is I don't know. Don't know. Something fun, I hope.
I think
Feel
that's
like we
true for a
deserve
lot
it.
of us. Yeah.
Yeah.